Marts in good times and bad. That's because Health Marts are independently owned by pharmacists who are part of the community and take the time to know you and your family's changing needs. At Health Mart, we care for caregivers, and we'd love to know each and every one of you by name. Visit healthmart.com for the location near you. Health Mart, caring for you and about you.
The following paid program is furnished by the Coalition. It's for basic entertainment and informational purposes only and is solely responsible for its content. It does not necessarily reflect the views of Cumulus Media, its management, or its staff. AM 790 Talk and Business presents The Coalition, a weekly 1-hour show that looks at all sides of local, regional, and national news as well as current events. Join us now for The Coalition.
And we are back. Again, coalitionradio.us. The podcast for this will appear on our website within about a day or so. So feel free to share that amongst your friends for light cocktail chatter, the witty repartee, the banter back and forth. Special guest this week. And as a result of his appearance, we're suspending all the rules about handicapping elections. We're going to get down to it right now. Rob Paquin, Executive Director of the Rhode Island Grand Old Party. When last we spoke, we were talking about Catherine Chafee Taylor, lifelong Chafeenista.
The way you pronounce the word Terry, I think, is a little off. That from working in Massachusetts, maybe the accent, right?
As I tell all our guests every week, for full disclosure here, every week I hitch up my burro, I take my few and tired belongings and go to Massachusetts to do the work that people from Massachusetts won't do. So,
I too just came back from Mass to take this position. They're surprisingly, Massachusetts has had quite a bit of opportunity, and if they can do it, well, we sure as heck can here. So,
have you worked in politics before? Or
yeah, I have. So I started licking envelopes and getting the associated paper cuts with those at 15. I started in Warwick, where I grew up, with Avedisian and Chafee. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Chafee's kind of left the herd at this point, but I'm still proud of where I started. And at the time, as a young idealist at 15, he seemed, there was no understanding the difference between a right-winger and a moderate or a rhino, which is a term I hate. But that kind of got me started. Spent a little time working for the government, pursued potentially what would have been a law enforcement career, though I decided that my true calling was politics. Came back, ran against McNamara, the current chair of the Dems, in 2008.
Mr. Squid.
He beat me pretty good, though he does owe me a few lawn signs. And Chairman McNamara, if you're listening, I'm still waiting for those. But that being said, I got an opportunity in 2010 to manage a primary congressional campaign with Bill Clegg. We lost to Mark Zakaria, who went on to face Langevin, and found myself with a great job offer that I couldn't refuse up in Mass, working in sales, kind of honing maybe one area of my craft that I hadn't had locked down. And after doing some enterprise IT sales, got a call from Smiley and said, can you take all that and put it to work for us and help get the ship turned around with me? And my answer was unequivocally, hell yes.
Well, that's outstanding. It's regardless of what your party affiliation is, I applaud people who are patriots, who contribute to the system, particularly candidates for the General Assembly, particularly those willing to take the slings and arrows of running for the general officer position, which brings us back, of course, to Ms. Taylor.
So, yeah.
So how does, at this point, has she gone rogue?
No, she hasn't. She hasn't. We work very closely with her, and I begun to tell a little bit of a quick story, and I want to recap that. So, my question, one of the first things I said, because I'm not naive, I'm not going to sit here and just talk in circles and say, hooray for the Republican brand, right? We're all very different. Some Republicans love other Republicans, and they dislike others. So one of my questions for Catherine Taylor when she first came to meet with us this year was, okay, so what's the deal? What's the deal with the job about Chafee? Because I'm going to get asked that. So for nothing else, what's the deal? And she said to me, and I don't think this is anything that was private or something that I couldn't share, that Chafee said to her, I know that you're going to be a watchdog. I know that you're a Republican. Is she, a right-wing, conservative, as we would define her? No, and she would tell you the same thing. But she believes in filling a position that constitutionally at this time we're required to fill. I am all for repealing the position. But as long as we have to put somebody up, I think that we've got the right candidate up to do it. She can be an advocate for as long as the office is involved, and if CONCON allows us to remove it or some other measure, I support Tony Jones' ideas, But for now, we've got to fill the spot. I know Catherine. I know what she stands for. Despite the name of her employer in any previous position, she and myself included. I mean, people will tell you that Avedisian is not conservative enough. They'll certainly tell you that Chafee is enough. But those are the people that got me my start, and you can't forget where you came from. And I don't think her previous employment for Chafee 1 or 2 necessarily reflects her ability to be a Republican. Now, how you define that, how we define that, I guess that's open to self-interpretation. But by my definition, she's a major part of this team and an asset to not only the GOP, but to the state, I think, if she gets in there.
I wish in running, I understand your need to run and to fill every potential general officer's position. My frustration, and we'll leave it at that, is she's essentially recreating a bureaucracy that exists already. There isn't a single job that the lieutenant governors who are running are seeking to do that doesn't already exist in Rhode Island government. And in doing so is wasting millions of dollars. If she said to me, okay, I'm going to be an advocate, at the same time, I'm not going to spend $150,000 a year on a public relations aide or a secretary or something else like that. I'm not going to spend the full budget, but I'm going to do what I can as an individual to advance state government. Okay, that's fair. And if she decides to take a salary for that, I don't even have a problem with that. But to essentially go on the campaign of being anti-right to work, which is a key component in moving Rhode Island future, forward, and to openly work with progressive organizations, I'm frustrated by that.
Well, just to close on that, I said I would reference it, so I'm keeping my word. My 70-30 rule, she falls into it. Whether every Republican agrees with right to work or not, I can't speak for everybody. Obviously, there's probably more on one side than the other. But if she's in that 30% where we're not all necessarily on the same page, I'm okay with that, because on most of the issues we're all in lockstep, and we're this hands and fighting to try and fix the state. As you heard on my radio ad that we played during the break, this sounds silly, right? It sounds maybe a little immature, but how could we break the state any more than the Democrats have for the last 75, 80 years? I mean, give us a chance. We can't screw it up any worse.
Well, and that leads us into the whole Rhode Island Constitutional Convention discussion. I mean, we're together on that. It's astonishing that people who would seek to empower people at the same time are afraid of people. They're afraid of the individual's right to contribute to the structure of government. They are inherently, you can't, one thing you can't change my opinion on is that there is a significant group of people who oppose CONCON who are overtly convinced that the Rhode Island electorate is stupid. Now, considering that same electorate voted them in, it's astonishing, but it plays to the liberal mantra that we know what's best for you. Mother government knows what's best for you. And there's, if you've listened to any of our shows, most notably a few weeks ago we had Judge Flanders in with Mike Riley and mayoral candidate Harrop. Rhode Island is irrevocably broken. I used to routinely debate Tea Party folks when the Tea Party was a real force under Colleen Conley and then Susan Wynn, that the best thing that can happen as a devotee of Ayn Rand, I'm convinced, is really the collapse of Rhode Island. I do everything I can in my own way to ensure that, to move that forward, to force Rhode Island into a complete collapse. So we are broken.
What's the definition of collapse, though? I mean, aren't we basically there?
Yeah.
We're last in everything. I mean, what does the dome have to physically fall?
That'd be cool.
But the one thing we're known for is the second largest unsupported dome in the country, right? I mean, we need the independent man.
That and legs and eggs. But I want to be on that. I had a kind of a crazy moment the other day with the squirrel, downtown. I had this vision of me flying over that plane. If I can evoke a scene from a great novel called Atlas Shrugged, I wanted to be on that plane watching Providence lights slowly blink out and reduce to chaos, because I'm convinced that's the only complete financial collapse of our cities, and then ultimately triggering. Well, constitutionally, we can't collapse at the state level, but triggering that type of crisis is really the only way that we're going to clear the deck in this state, because this state doesn't need an enema.
Well, what's going to happen to people like you and I who can't or won't try and survive and tolerate that final epic collapse as you described. That would be my one concern. I'd love, there's a talk show host pretty popular on the circuit around here who said the Republican Party needs to just burn to the ground and build it back up again. And I don't think that was the case. Dan York, yeah. And I don't think that's the case. And I've called him on that, and I think that even he's seeing some changes. So I don't know if we need to resort to pushing the nuclear option button on this, but that would be my concern, is what happens to somebody like me who, okay, it's completely fallen apart. There's nothing left. We have an opportunity to stand up in the ashes as Republicans and take back what should be ours: a smaller government, social responsibility and tolerance when applicable, and make this state great again, because it really is the most beautiful state in this country, if you ask me, at least of the 30 or so that I've visited.
Well, we're there to pick up the pieces.
Right, but can we afford to?
I don't think we can afford not to. I mean, the bankruptcy process in Providence, which is inevitable. I mean, if you listen to Mike Riley's numbers, Mike Riley is performing a remarkable contribution to the state of Rhode Island in what he does in bird dogging and watching the fine folks in cities like Providence, West Warwick, et al., who are sitting on time bombs that aren't going to go away. I'm going to co-opt a statement from what I call the good Gina, because there's the good Gina and there's the evil Gina. All right, the good Gina, who ran for treasurer a few years ago.
Depends on which day of the week.
Right. Well, who's been kidnapped now by the evil Gina.
Yes.
What have you done with our Gina? All right. Who popularized the phrase, "It's all about the math," because it is all about the math, and the math at this point, it's the fourth quarter. You're down by 4 touchdowns, and you've got. You don't have enough time to run the length of the field 4 times. We're done. We're toast.
I think that if we get into that level of failure, which I know it's hard for us to look at each other with a straight face and think, could this government fail us any worse? But it could, and we could be looking at Detroit with however many hundreds of miles of coastline we have. That's it. I don't think there would be any difference.
And that would be fine by me.
See, I wouldn't stay here. So you know what I mean? I think you're going to lose talent if I can call myself that, or plenty of other talented people here. I mean, we wouldn't. I'd have to move to Connecticut, and I'd have to drive into work to the GOP every day.
Well, I was in Detroit this week.
Oh, that's right.
And the green. I mean, what was a popular cliche a year or two ago in the business speak? The green shoots are starting to appear already. You've got private bids being made for vast tracts of Detroit real estate, with a notion towards investment. Post-bankruptcy, Wall Street, the financial community, craves certainty. They crave resolution. Now, that resolution can be initially bad, but ultimately...
At least they know what the path is.
They see a path, and post-resolution, to coin the phrase, there's the way forward. The way forward being a capitalistic society where people can use capitalism as the logical tool to realize their true human potential. And once we get over, and once the welfare state the welfare industry that's taken over this state, the Linda Katzes of the Economic Progress Institute, who make $1.50 a year, helping, there's real good business, by the way, in the state. And one of the few industries that we don't talk about enough in this media is just how much money you can make helping the poor.
Nonprofit is the biggest.
Exactly.
Not all, but
we actually, one of our earliest shows when we were on a very small station, we actually did a dramatic reading of tax returns of most of the major not-for-profits in this town. And
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
No, I mean all of them, all these different organizations that that distribute heating assistance. Center for Economic Progress, all these organizations.
What's Joe Kennedy making for giving that oil away?
Your predecessor at the Democratic Party, all right, who ran for office and failed, like most heads of the Rhode Island Democratic Party ultimately meet, was making somewhere in the $70,000 or $80,000 a year running a quote unquote, this is air quotes, folks, this is radio, a nonprofit that helped educate children on economics. Huh? The one thing the state needs is an economics intervention.
I would be happy to teach kids anything positive for $70K.
Sure exactly. So, and that's how things work in this state. But you alluded to one of the other organizations, which is, of course, the Rhode Island Liberty Caucus. And give us a little bit of background on that, because as a libertarian, I see Rhode Island, I see GOP and libertarian as somewhat mutually exclusive terms.
And I see us working together. So how do we bridge that gap? We've got 12 minutes. Let's figure this out.
Well, tell us about the evolution of the Liberty Caucus. Who's in it? And
so Russ Hergen, a really up-and-coming member of the Rhode Island Republican Party, business owner. He works full-time for a major pharmaceutical company doing IT. He's a big donor. It's no secret. Anybody can see our records online. Really an amazing addition to the GOP. Mm-hmm. And Russ is a hardcore fiscal conservative, social libertarian. Just really, to me, defines what a Republican libertarian would look like, whatever that is, right? Mm-hmm. So